So welcome, Ali. So
Hi.
actually, we just met you and
Yeah,
me and Ali actually last week, I think.
I think last week. Yeah,
Last week online.
it feels like we've known each other for quite a bit longer than that.
Yeah,
But
like just 1 week, but like we talked so many things. Like I don't feel like we just met last week, but it's
yeah,
you actually click my advertisement of my 2 months master course, and I thought
right,
that
yeah.
you want to learn Japanese, and I did okay free consultation, and then oh my god, you can speak everything, and while
Oh
you're
yeah,
applying.
I wanted to improve my Japanese, but unfortunately, yeah, we had so much to talk about. We didn't get to talking about Japanese
Yeah.
itself.
And
Um,
then I said, okay, what do you want to do? Like you already can speak fluently. And then I said, maybe we can do like funny YouTube video.
yeah, yeah. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, YouTube video. Yeah, sounds like
Uh-huh.
it's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Cool.
Yeah, so let's talk about something funny. I actually just 1 week, but it's I quite learned about you quite so many things.
Okay,
But
now I'm worried.
really interesting things is first of all how you actually became so fluent, you know?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think like when I started to learn Japanese, and to be clear, like I didn't learn Japanese very quickly. Well, my speaking improved quite quickly, but when I first started speaking was maybe at this point 20 years ago. So it's quite a long time ago when I
Mm-hmm.
first looked at Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
And I really didn't want to have like a typical Gaijin accent. I didn't want to be
Mm.
like, "Watashi wa ari desu." I didn't want to speak like that, right?
Uh-huh.
So,
Uh-huh. Can,
so I
can you
focused.
can you show me like the actual like a common accent and then now actual your accent? Can you show me?
あ、
Yeah.
sorry. 私はAliです。よろしくお願いします。みたいな雰囲気で。
Yeah.
But especially in a formal situation, it's like more like ただいまご紹介いただきました。Aliと申します. Like, like
Wow. Yeah,
the rest
exactly.
is
Like
so
Japanese tone is really low, right? Like どうもはじめまして。テレビと申しま
but
す。
it depends on the situation, right? The
うん。
tone is really low if it's like that in a formal situation. But like if I'm meeting someone and it's like a more of like a playful, like a bar situation where it's like, ari da yo, ohayo tte. Like it's just fun and light and playful, right? So
Uh-huh. Yeah,
depending
yeah,
on the
yeah,
situation.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So like yeah, so I wanted to focus on getting my accent maybe not perfectly native, but I didn't want people to laugh at my accent, right? Or kind of
Mm.
like, oh yeah, he can speak Japanese, but it just sounds strange or it's difficult to like communicate at the same kind of level of information exchange
Mm-hmm.
as native do. So I wanted to work on that. And for that, it was like the first thing I did was I was like, I'm gonna learn hiragana perfectly, right?
Mm.
Because if I learn all the noise, the sounds that hiragana makes, then
Mm.
I know that I can only make these sounds, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
no other sounds in Japanese. So
Yeah,
as long as I
exactly.
stick to these sounds only, then that's not entirely true because we drop some sounds and we focus on others in Japanese sometimes. But if I focus on only these sounds, then at least I'll be able to, like, when I listen to some Japanese, I can write down what they said in hiragana. At least I can do that, no matter how fast it is, because these are the
Mm.
only sounds it can make. So it has to be one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other thing that was a big deal for me right at the beginning was I didn't want to have like in my mind when I'm speaking to a Japanese person, I think in English,
Mm.
translate the thought, and
Mm.
then try and make that work because um, that for me, if you do that, your Japanese is very unnatural,
Yeah.
and even if you did it perfectly,
Mm.
the things you say in certain situations and the conversation topics you have are just completely different, even in the same situation in
Mm.
Japanese. So, for example, if I said in Japanese, let's say I'm talking to a nurse, right?
Mm.
Like casually, it's like,
うんうんう
if I just
ん
said that,
う
how the
ん
fuck do you translate that into English, right? Like, there's so much cultural knowledge baked into
Yeah.
the ideas
I
there,
don't
right?
know
That you just,
how you can actually translate these things.
yeah,
I think its audience is like a question mark about your actual
what I just said.
nationality, I think.
Yeah, I'm British. I'm British.
Yeah.
I'm from the UK. So
Mm-hmm.
but like what I just said in Japanese is like literally like uh for nurses, the up-down relationships are very difficult, aren't they? Right. And it's like what's an up-down relationship? It's like, well, it's
Yeah.
to do with like the Japanese hierarchical thing, and in hospitals, it's also to do with like doctors and the relationship with nurses, and they're much meaner than they are in the UK. And there's so much baked into it, right?
Yeah.
That like you couldn't translate that easily between like the two languages. So I didn't do that. I just decided that I was going to like basically grow a baby Japanese brain next to my English brain. And when I'm speaking in conversation, only use that, even if I can't keep up with the conversation, right? But basically I was trying to make sure that I'm not using like my English voice to try and make Japanese sounds, because it's like, I don't know, it's like a panda wearing a dress, right? It may look cute, but it's still a panda, right? Like it doesn't come across as like a natural.
I did the one video. It's about voice training and how actually I improve my English, pronunciation. And I said I changed the voice. I say like, hey, hello, Terumi. My name is Terumi. But when I talk in Japanese, it's domo, hajimemashite, Terumi desu. So it's a voice is different. Hey, hi, what's up? To like, domo, Terumi desu. It's like I changed the voice, and actually it sounds more makes sense to me. Not keeping Japanese voice. Hello, Terumi desu. It doesn't make sense.
It's not just your voice. It's like the entire body language that you come in with, right? For example, if I go to a restaurant in the UK and I say, "Oh, table for two, please," I say, "Oh, table for two, please," right? Like I'm up here, and like. Whereas if I go to a restaurant in Japan, especially because I don't want to scare the people that run the restaurant, I'm down here and I'm kind of bowing a little bit, and I'm kind of, and that's not because I'm like making myself lower than them. It's just to ease their feelings and make them feel more comfortable with me. But like, the vibe, it's the same vibe, but the way you express it, like in your body and your facial muscles and the words you say, is just completely different. So it's almost impossible to like in the moment transfer between English and Japanese and the two of those things without losing a lot of information and just sounding unnatural. So the other thing like is a lot of gaijin, especially men, they try to make jokes in Japanese by translating the joke from English to Japanese, and that doesn't work. And then because it doesn't work, they say, "Oh, Japanese doesn't have sarcasm, or that Japanese don't have a sense of humor." It's like, no, dude, it's not funny. That's the problem. Right?
It's really, you cannot translate. For example, I always tell my friends also, Japanese friends, you cannot translate Japanese to English. And then I tell my student, English to Japanese is just totally different language. It doesn't make sense when you translate it. But when you learn the grammar, it's like it looks like you can translate, right? When you learn the grammar. But it's really actually it's not. I don't know. I feel like no meaning to learn the grammar. When I learn English, of course, I start learning English like a grammar, right? Like a junior high school. But now I feel like it was like a bullshit. Like I'm not using this knowledge at all.
I think I watched your other video about like how grammar is useless. The only thing I would say is that in a language like Japanese, once you learn like a few basic systems for changing verbs and things like that, it becomes a little bit easier to just like learn new things. But the one thing I would say that as a beginner you should probably learn is the plain past tense for group 2 verbs. So for example, if you have like oyogu, you need to be able to turn that into oyoida, right? And if you can do that, then you can just do that into oyoide or whatever, right? You need to be able to know the rules for that. Everything else though, everything on top of like the past plain form is just variations of that kind of thing, right? So as long as you can learn those, then I think it's okay. But I think I did need to learn a little bit out of a book for just for that. I literally bought a grammar book, read through the whole thing to get a basic gist, but then put a bookmark in that page that does the conjugating the past form, and I had to and then I spent some time memorizing just that page, and everything else was fine. But that page was important for me.
Yeah, me too. Like English, also the same. Like a cut is it the past tense of cut? How can I say? Is it cut? It's same.
I think it's cut.
Same, right? Then I just want to check, sometimes, the specific time that when I'm using.
Yeah.
And the grammar is something when you just want to check. It doesn't mean you learn this, you can use it, you can be fluent. When you're speaking and then you have the question, so that's why, what was it? Cut? The past? Oh no, it's a cut. It's the same. Huh? Okay.
But what's nice about Japanese is it's much more regular than English, right? So for example, if you do oyogu and you learn oyoida, then you can also do kagu, right? Kaida, right? You can learn the rule once, and then you can most of the time. Is that? But English is not like that. English is a terrible language. Right?
Yeah,
like,
it's a terrible. Read and read. It's a spelling same, and then how can I recognize it's a difference?
It's like, I feel sorry for people who have to learn English because it's not a regular language.
Yeah, and also tell me these things, like English, like British and again American is different, but it's, for example, spelling and the pronunciation totally different. Enough like GH, and I don't need to pronounce it GH, but then recognize, then you have to say G. And then also the other things like a lot of people, then you have if I say like Japanese person, right? You lot of people, right?
You gotta be a lot of people, right? A lot of people together.
A lot of people. Then it doesn't recognize. How can I recognize it's a lot of people?
but I mean, Japanese has problems like that too. I'm sure from like speaking to your students that even if they get the grammar and the word choice perfect, if their intonation sounds strange, they're just going to sound strange, and it's not going to. Japanese people won't be able to understand exactly what they're saying, because I think the same is true of English and Japanese. Is that we listen to the sentence, and even if we don't hear each word perfectly, because of the flow of the sentence, we kind of fill in the gaps of what else is going on in that sentence. So if your intonation is bad in Japanese, then and you're not speaking very clearly at the same time, then the words just won't come across like to Japanese people, right? So
exactly. Yes, exactly. That's maybe similarity between English and Japanese. For example,
I think all languages probably.
Arigatou. We never say arigatou, but it's spelling, it's written arigatou, right? But we never say.
So the thing you mentioned about how like it's different between the spelling and the pronunciation, they actually came up with something not recently, but because I have two kids, the eldest is 8 and the youngest is 6, and the eldest went through the English school system the first year, and they didn't teach me this when I was that age, but they have something now called phonics. Have you heard of phonics?
Phonics or no?
So if you imagine, right, like in hiragana, for each hiragana, it's like perfectly like that word, that character is that sound, right? So phonics does that for groups of English letters together, right? So there's like a chart of phonics, and it's like a th is f, right? Like so when in enough or something like that. And kids in the UK now, they learn to read using this kind of basically English hiragana chart, right? Using phonics instead, right? So by the end of like 1 year, my eldest son, he could read English books like from beginning to end. Well, like kids' books, but he could read them without any help from anyone. So I think Japanese people, if they're trying to learn like English, how to read stuff, then phonics is like a really good option for that. Obviously, speak to an English teacher because I don't teach English, but I think that can help a little bit with that. Again, I'm an English teacher, so I have no idea with it.
But you know that it's said 99% of English teacher in Japan, which is native Japanese, but it's teaching English, they cannot watch the drama in English.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, my son, who's like 8 years old, he has English lessons in school, and he comes home and says, "Dad, they're teaching us stuff that's wrong." And I said, "Look, we're in Japan now, so we have to protect the wa, right? Like we want to help the teacher make a good class, right? That's our goal here. We do not correct the teacher, right? Like we've got to work together." You do that for me, buddy. I know you're right.
Japanese culture things.
Yeah, I'm like that's what it means to be Japanese. But he's like, yeah, but the teacher's really wrong about the stuff he's teaching us. It's like, yeah, you were born in the UK. What are you gonna do, right? So
上下関係, right?
上下関係.
Yeah, 上下関係.
小学生でも上下関係だよね. I think for me, the next thing after like really focusing on pronunciation and getting the accent right, the biggest thing.
Before that, I have one question. I think everybody has this question. Is that your language, Japanese language scale was like that or like that?
Okay, so based on my feeling, like I feel like I've always been good at Japanese. like based on my confidence, right? The minute I learned like hajimemashite, I was like, I can speak Japanese now, right? And I would just be super confident with myself. Which is why that the next thing I was going to talk about is like you need to be confident that you can speak Japanese and that no matter what situation you'll get in, you're going to be okay, right? Like you'll figure out a way out of it, just using like your communication ability, right? But for me, I think if you had to chart like a progression, it's probably linear. It's probably like this, but it feels like this, right? It feels like I was always up here and I'm just like thanks, right? So I'm not sure if that's helpful, like if you're not naturally confident with that kind of thing, but I've always been very
because
confident.
my English was like that, like almost 20 years like this. And then when I said, okay, I'm not gonna do this grammar study, anymore. I'm not gonna do this. Then, okay, I'm gonna summarize what the people ask me usually, where you're from, and what you're doing, how you end up. Okay, I'm gonna answer only this question. I just, commit the phrases only, like only phrases. I start committing. Then suddenly I feel, okay, I'm communicating. Nice.
Right. I felt like that's what I did from the first 2 months. Like when I was 16 years old, I was just learning phrases. Like I would say I was able to have conversations very quickly because I was focusing on, so like I'm jumping ahead of my notes here, but like I was focusing on like what can I say to Japanese people when I meet them, right? What words should I say? I want to say this kind of thing. Or when somebody asks me this question, I want to have good answers for it. So I think I was doing that from like, before I'd even turned 20, I was like trying to talk to Japanese people in that way. Well, the difference now is before I was very reactive in conversations. Like I would wait for people to ask me questions. Whereas now I don't know what you'd call this in English, but now I'm kind of focused on like トーク力. like how do I like そうトーク力をどうやって磨くかは今知ってる感じで。
トーク力めっちゃ大事。
So talk ryoku is like your ability at conversation, right? So instead of like me waiting for them to ask, oh, where are you from, etc. Like I try and guess something about them because like in Japan, there's a lot of homogeneity. So you can, for example, if I live in Sendai in Tohoku, and if I see someone who doesn't really have a Sendai face, I can say, Onisan tenkin da yo ne. Like I say, like you come from somewhere else or something like that. Or if the way they speak or the way they behave is not like the average for like a Tohoku person, I can like guess those things about them. So like I'm trying to like have my conversation skill have a little bit more impact than just like that's kind of boring, right? So
99% of foreigners, they start only this 私の名前はアリーです。イギリス人です。Then from the third, fourth sentences, they really struggle. So that's why I'm always saying the self-introduction is the most important when you want to meet the people. I always say whatever, like any like situation, job, friends, new people, whatever, it's a self-introduction. First impact is actually like 99%. If you just fail it, next time they will never talk, again. So that's actually トーク力, I think.
But like, I think depending on the situation, the introduction will come and I will answer seriously at some point, but at the beginning,ほぼふざけてるよね. Like I just tease them. Like I just make fun of people. Like it's just like say, oh, where are you from? I'm from Mars. Like I actually wanted to go to Jupiter, but getting the visa was very difficult, so I settled for Earth. Right? Like I just to say funny things to Japanese people who like, and it makes them laugh, and then it kind of like raises like the. I don't know how you translate this in English, but like tensionが上がる.
テンション上がる。まさにまさに。
It means like you're kind of just making them laugh and having fun and being playful at first. And then once they get to experience that, then bring them back to like, oh, okay, I'm from the UK. So like anything you say after that is like 8 times more interesting and you had fun with it, right? So
キャバクラテクですね。
キャバクラテックで。
キャバクラテクで。We're gonna talk about these things later.
キャバクラテックはもうちょっと技術レベル高いから。
レベル高い。
だけじゃないよ、そこは。残念ながらね。So, okay, So getting your vocal setting and everything, your oral posture, right? But I think for somebody who's not confident in their speaking ability, once you got this awareness of your accent, you need to maximize the time you're spending in Japanese conversation, right? So one way to do that, like, is obviously take lessons with you or or however, like, make friends online, etc. Making Japanese friends is important. Moving to Japan, like, I would say the last 2 years, like before, like 2 or 3 years ago, I could have conversations in Japanese, like no problem. And I could do information exchange. But the past 2 or 3 years, like living in Japan and just putting myself in situations where I could talk to a lot of Japanese people, it was like I think the thing that really accelerated my tokryoku, my ability at conversation, to a point where, like, I would argue that and this, Japanese people have said this to me as well, this, like, the average Japanese guy probably does not have the conversational skill that I do. Or maybe in Kansai they do, but in Tohoku definitely not, right? So
definitely.
so that,
no, I think it's most of, I mean, it's not only like Tohoku, it's really, I never actually met like you, that it's even you have the courage to go to Kyabakura alone. I've never met until now, never.
but let's say you don't have the courage to go to those places, then I mean, we'll talk about the whole Mizushobai thing in a minute, but you're going to get into some conversations with Japanese people naturally because you're interested in Japan. One thing that a lot of people who don't improve their Japanese speaking ability seem to do is, if there's like a part of the conversation where the meaning flow has stopped, right? You've been stopped, like, been able to, like, exchange meaning with the other person. It's like they fall back to English, right? Yeah. Or the Japanese person that they're speaking to really wants to practice their English, right? Those situations, you've really got to, like, protect your Japanese time at that moment, right? So no matter what happens, this is your time for speaking Japanese. If they want to learn English, they can pay you for it, right? But for you, you've got to stand up and say, look, I know you want to practice English, but today we're speaking Japanese, right? You've got to be able to just, like, hold your ground there. And also, like, you need to be able to interact with people without understanding 100% of what's going on and still continuing the conversation. So let's say someone says, blah, 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 sensor, blah, 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 right? And the only word you understood was sensor, then don't worry about the rest of the meaning. Just say, sensor this, right? And then let them keep talking, right? Let them keep talking some other stuff and keep the conversation going so that you have different places that you can, like, get into, different places that you can, things you can ask about, things you can, like, bridge the topics off into, such that you're maximizing that conversational time. And I think I did that primarily just by going out to, like, bars and things like that, and having, because as a gaijin, if you go out to a bar, people and it's like a small bar with just a few people, the bartender will talk to you a little bit, the other customers might talk to you a little bit, and if they see that you can speak a little bit of Japanese, Japanese people are really happy in that situation, because firstly, when they first see you, they're worried that you don't speak any Japanese.
100%.
If they see that you can speak a little bit of Japanese, now you're like a gateway to another culture. Like, you can speak Japanese, but you're also from somewhere else. So they have this ability to, like, experience parts of the world that they haven't, or ways of thinking which they wouldn't otherwise be able to, because you can speak Japanese. So they'll talk to you. And again, in those situations, like, there will always be a point where they say a word or 2 words or 3 words which you don't understand. You can stop and look them up in your dictionary, and you should do that. Improve your vocabulary. But a lot of the time you can say, so da yo ne, watashi mo sou omou, I think so too, and then just carry on into whatever other conversation topics. I think doing that really made it so that my conversation time was very, very long wherever I went.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So that's why this, it's kind of frustration that it's sometimes you really need to learn from the conversation some words, but also you cannot ask, like, every second.
So.
And then also, because of the things you cannot understand, it doesn't mean you should shut down the conversation and you switch English,
Right.
So the switching English is you should never. I think it's any language is the same.
100%.
Yeah, because I speak Greek also, right? And then I cannot understand all the conversation.
Yeah.
But I cannot switch the English because that I just bother the conversation, why they are making the conversation in Greek, and then why I need to bother alone,
It's like it's a balance between like conversational flow and understanding, right? And you have to choose carefully. Like if you go only for understanding, there's no flow, right? There's absolutely nothing in terms of like this conversation moving forward. But if you don't understand anything, then it's quite difficult to do it. So you need to have some vocabulary. And the thing that I think that will help in that situation is to first, when you're starting out, keep the topics around things that you know about, things you have vocabulary about. Right? So like you say about the self-introduction, right? Generally speaking, Japanese people will ask you like the same 5 questions, in your life, probably thousands of times. Like different Japanese people, they'll ask you the same questions.
Exactly.
Thousands and thousands of times. So
exactly.
The first 1,000 times, it's annoying. But then after that, it's more like, this is just, how do you say, how Japanese people greet me, right? This is just aisatsu. This is just how Japanese, and for me, I got a little bit bored of it at the beginning. So the first thing was like, okay, first I'm going to answer normally, like very politely, this, etc. But then it was like, I was getting bored of it. So I was like, okay, well, how can I learn new vocab and at the same time make these conversations a little bit more interesting? So for example, why are you in Japan? It's like, oh, I'm teaching English at a high school, or that kind of thing, right? Was the first maybe 1 or 2 months. But then after that, I got bored of that. I was like, why are you in Japan? And I was like, oh, 自衛隊に誘拐されてもう来ちゃったんですよ。Like, I was just making it like I got kidnapped by the army and now I'm trying to and I would use that, Japanese people would laugh, and then I would get bored of it. And so, but think about it. I learned like yukai sareru, like passive form kidnapped, right? Like things like that, right? So I'd get bored of that and I'd try and come up with something else to say in that situation each time, right? And while I was coming up with all of these different like ways to answer questions, like, oh, Nihongo umai desu ne, and then I'll be like, oh, hi, or I would be, so omoitai desu, or something that really annoys Japanese people is if you say, kochira koso umai desu yo, like if you say, yo Japanese, right? Like that makes them laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
You can have fun with that situation. So I try to like come up with lots of phrases and things to say. A lot of the time by copying how Japanese people speak, but I didn't want to be bored in these conversations every time people would ask me like, and now I'm bored of making people laugh, right? So so now when someone says Nihongo umai desu, I just say arigato. I just skip it because it's kind of boring at this point. But I think if you keep like improving or increasing like the different things you can say in those conversations, you can make it a lot of fun for yourself and kind of stand out from like the average gaijin, because gaijin have a lot of this problem called like the dancing gaijin monkey like situation.
What is that?
Like, that's
dancing
like
gaijin monkey.
so that? Dancing gaijin monkey is like Japanese people are interested in you for maybe about 5-10 minutes, but then they ask all the questions like, oh, where are you from, what are you doing here, all the rest of it, and then like that's the end of your section of the TV program, right? That's it. Like there's nothing else. There's no deeper connection to be made there. So it's difficult to break out of that if you answer really boringly. Whereas if you show a bit of your personality and then ask them about their life a little bit, that I think takes you to like you're more seen as a human being rather than just like a dancing gaijin monkey, right? So like what you want to like get to that kind of deeper connection and that takes a bit of time and learning different ways to have conversations with people. So
this is really true. I always say self-introduction, what does it mean? Like I always say best self-introduction. Best self-introduction doesn't mean you present, I'm smart. I can speak Japanese. I can speak English. It's just, this is not the best. The best self-introduction is funny and interesting. And then you can actually make them feel really comfortable and fun. That's the best self-introduction. Everybody care. Like I have to speak perfectly. I should not make a mistake. Everybody like really stress and try to be smart. No, no one actually care. Actually, really.
I mean, The thing that really made that clear for me was that watching my kids, because they were, I think 3 and 5 years old when we moved from the UK to Japan. And, they were going to have problems because they spoke Japanese at home with their mother, but they didn't speak it, with other kids, right? So they went straight to a Japanese kindergarten, yochien, and within 2 weeks, they were just like Japanese boys, right? And they were really polite boys in English. Like they were like, please, thank you. We trained them well. As Japanese young boys, they're terrible. Like they come home and I'm like, okainasai, unchi. Like, okay, fine. Like, that was how they behave.
Okay, like, because it's for me, it's normal, like kids is always like a unchi.
Especially like young, like 5, 6-year-old boys. Like so they went from being like very polite English children to very like namaiki Japanese kids over the course of 2 weeks. And I realized that they don't care about making mistakes. They don't care about the past form of like the past causative, all that shit. They don't care about any of that, right? And and now my 8-year-old, I don't think my vocabulary is less than his, but he has different vocabulary to mine. Like he has he knows a lot of words that I don't know because he goes to a Japanese school, obviously. So I'm now have to try and catch up with him a little bit. But
me too. My daughter was saying like a puppy and also dog. And it's a kitty and a cat. I actually didn't recognize it. So basic English. I didn't know it's a baby animal and a proper adult animal has a different name. And then she was summarizing like a rabbit and then the one more, I don't remember. And then, I didn't know that. So that's why these things, I think it's the same, like as a like foreigner and living the different country, and then it's kids are learning the proper language.
Proper ways to speak the language, whereas we're learning like the drunken bar version of the language.
Yeah. チャテスガーはバストラアートという芸術が有名です。
バストラ、チャティスガーはバストラアート。チャティスガーのバストラアートは芸術。In Chhattisgarh, Bastra art is famous. はじめまして、Vivek と申します。名前は Vivek です。名字は Jen です。
はじめまして、
よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
私はインド人です。インドにはチャティスガー出身です。チャティスガーはバストラアートという芸術が有名です。
ジェーンさんは
私は見ます。
奥さん見るだけ？
見るだけ。
そうだけど、どうして
私はわからない。
そうですか。見るだけ面白いですね。
見るだけ面白いです。はい。
じゃあ、ジェンさんお仕事は何ですか？
私の14年間自動車業界でメカニカルエンジニアとして働いてます。7年間、はい、ありがとうございます。